All right, welcome to Stampscapes Live. If anyone is up late at night, or maybe it's early morning wherever you are in the world, or if you're just watching this on replay, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be stamping out a fairly large format piece right here. It's, let's see, what is it? It's 10 inches by 5 inches. So a little bit of an unconventional size, but I figured I need that size for what I'm going to do here. This is based on a memory of really an area that I like going hiking whenever we went to the Sierras every summer, or it seemed like every summer in childhood. And there was a lake that had a stream running down to it from a hillside, and that hill went up to this area called the Dana Lakes. And we used to go fishing at the lake at the base of it. Called Tioga Lake, and it was a Sierra, kind of an alpine lake up at 10,000 feet in California, Sierra Nevadas. And one of the things I like to do is I like to go hiking up that trail, even more than the fishing that we were doing down below. But today would have been my dad's birthday, and it was always one of those things that, when we were really little, we'd have to get, one of the parents to take us up there on that hike. And my dad would do it, or one of my uncles or something like that. But this one goes out to Dad in memory of the Dana Lakes. I wouldn't even be able to hike up there without getting into shape these days, because it's up at that 10,000 feet, and I would really be suffering at that altitude. Okay, so anyways, I'm stamping out this stamp called River, okay? I've been meaning to do this design for a while. We're going to be stamping this on a semi-gloss paper, cardstock. Hello, Alicia. Good to see you. Let's see. I have been busy, yeah. It is... For my time, it's 11:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here in San Diego. And I wanted to get to this earlier today, but I just didn't get to it. An order came in, a large international wholesale order, and that type of stuff always has to come first. Everyone needs their stuff, especially these days when you just never know how long shipping is going to take on an international basis. It could be really fast, but then sometimes it could be really slow, so I really like to get people's orders out as fast as possible. But I thought, I got to get to this, this scene here, if I can, I mean... today, being that it would have been Dad's birthday today, he wouldn't mind if I didn't. But I thought it would be timely just to get it out there. Hello, Kay. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, he was a good guy. He died a few years ago. I don't even have to do the math. I don't even know how old he would be right now. But one of the things that I've been doing, sometimes not all the time, but like around every Father's Day and maybe on his birthday, I've been stamping out some kind of scene. Usually it's a fishing scene, because that was pretty much his hobby. He enjoyed fishing a lot. And I don't know, I had done several types of lake and ocean types of fishing things, and I thought, well, what else? I didn't want to do the same thing every time. And I remembered there was the Dana Lakes, so hiking in the Sierras, that was always kind of our big hike that we went on when we were kids. It wasn't a huge hike or anything like that, but I thought I would do something like that. Okay, so this is called River right here. And my scale is going to be completely off right here, okay? I'm going to stamp some, like a cascading type of little stream here. It's not going to be so small. Like this right here is really way too small for the waterfalls here, but that's what we have to work with, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'll play around with scale a little bit more with some additional trees around here. And, you know, we'll say that that's not maybe the outlet, and that's maybe one of the outlets for the streams or something like that. So we'll play around with scale here a lot. Things, you know, things can always, that being said, you know, you can always play around with scale and, I don't know, a symbolic type of approach to your imagery. Everything doesn't have to be, you know, completely within the right ratio. You know what I mean? We're working with kind of a, you know, we're not working with like, you know, pencils and pens here. We're working with rubber stamps, so we have to go with the sizes that we have here. So when it comes to landscape elements, you know, I take my liberties with scale if need be. Okay, so this is the Babbling Brook here. And I have this down here. We have these little pine trees and stuff like that. But when I stamp this down here, those are going to represent more like, you know, bushes or something of that sort. Okay, so where this is going to transition into this right here, I'm going to wipe off the bottom of this, okay? And this is one of those things that can really make things a lot easier when it comes to the blending of imagery. It's just taking a paper towel and wiping off those areas that are going to overlap into a sibling image. Doesn't have to be done like that, okay? You can do, you can just stamp, you know, you can just overlap your imagery, okay? But this, I feel that when you do things like this, especially with sky imagery, I mean, I do with land imagery too, but it can make things just inherently a little bit more graceful in terms of that overlap, that area, so that when you go in with your coloring and the blending of form and everything like that, it's just inherently blended in a little bit easier and more graceful. I keep saying that graceful, but you can see where this kind of peters out like that. So see, if I add in other types of trees or something like that, it's not such a harsh transition from one thing to the next. I mean, I try to make it where it's not harsh anyway if you don't do that. So if you do that, see how it just kind of fades out like that? So if you add another rock over here where it fades out on the side, it'll fade into that accompanying image, okay? So I'm going to flank these areas with some additional trees and such. Let me see here. I might go with 2 impressions of that. Kind of like a little cascade like this. I'm trying to think of a way to do this. Maybe this is kind of going like this. It's a little bit more over here than this one's going over here. Then I think the next one I'll put over here, and then the next one I'll go like that. So that creates this little serpentine type of kind of visual path that's, again, it's inherent in the imagery. Maybe I'll go with that. Let's see. I'm trying to think of a way to do this. I mean, you can do it multiple ways, but I think I'll go like that. Oh, I know. So this design this one's called Brook Falls. I think I'm just going to use this portion of it right here. Okay. What I was trying to gauge here by holding that there is, you know, if I go with that right there, how much space am I going to have for that there? That's why I'm going with a really quite an elongated piece right here, because I knew that I wanted the spirit of this scene to be kind of about this, you know, this cascading area of waterfalls, hopefully in a nice, graceful transitioning composition, layout, whatever. Okay, so let me see. Let me stamp out or ink up quite a bit more than what I think I'm going to use here. Okay, so this right here, there's like two waterfalls on this. It's like a cascading falls. There's the upper and lower portion right here. I'm just going to be going mostly for that upper area right there. If I get a little bit of that lower area, that's not going to be bad, but I'm not going to do like those larger rocks down here. All right, so that being said, I'll wipe off some of this bottom portion. That, again, that's going to be the part that's going to transition down here. And I'll get a little bit of this. And you can even do the top portion if you want to. Usually it's the bottom and the sides. I usually don't get the top portions of things so much. Okay, let's see. And let me get a little bit of masking on here just in case. Okay. Torn paper towel usually does the trick. Let's see. All right. Have about 1/4 inch of your top portion showing like that, okay? Just so you don't get these big spaces in between, these big gaps in between your imagery if you want them to blend in with one another. Hello, Christine. What time is it for everyone that's on here? I don't know what time zones you're all in or whatnot. I mean, it's late here for me, but I go to bed like at, I don't know, 2, 3, 4. It's not recommended if you're getting like 3 or 4 hours sleep, like I do a lot. Okay, but anyways, see that right here? See how those are really kind of, see how that side like that is just blotted out? I mean, it looks kind of dreamy though, don't you think? Don't you think it's like, it looks like it's going back in like fog or shadow or something like that, just inherently. So, I mean, that makes it really easy to blend imagery together like that. And, you know, I mean, if I get some of that down into these rocks, it's not really a big deal because it's been blotted off, so it's like a grayish tinge. So it just fades out and it blends in perfectly with the other types of imagery. So, well, Kay's in the same, Kay's in the same time zone as I am. 8:34 a.m. in Norway. You're watching a very early live stream, Christine. North Pole, Alaska, 10:30 p.m. Huh. That's interesting. I don't know, I don't know too many people in that time zone, Alicia. That's cool. Okay, so we have one more to go here. Let's keep it going. All right, now the place that I'm kind of representing here is not what these in this this area that I used to go hiking in look like, okay? It's just kind of, you know, this is my tonight's version of that location. We didn't see these like streams like that. I mean, if it was like this, that was like a little, kind of a small little, it wasn't so much of a, you know, it's like a little tiny brook type of thing. Even when I think about it now, I think I'm getting a little bit, I feel the altitude. It's one of those things, you know, when you're stamping out these different types of things, that's what I always say about scenic stamping. It can be somewhat kind of like a mentally or kind of emotionally transportive into the locations that you're stamping. So if I start gasping for air and running out of breath, it's because I'm up at 10,000 feet mentally. But hopefully you won't see like a heart attack on a stamping live stream here. Okay, so this one here, this is the same Babbling Brook that I stamped out in that first waterfall, okay? And I'm stamping out a smaller portion of it here. Oh, Christine, you've been at work since 5 a.m., huh? All right, so there we go. So this is the kind of the visual path here. In theory, I'll have to see how this comes together, but I have a feeling that the eye will kind of go up this way. It goes like this and like this. See that water direction like that? So if you can keep someone's eye kind of going, you know, in kind of a little bit of a kind of a graceful path throughout your scenes. I don't know. It can lend itself to kind of a nice kind of visual harmony because usually people when they look at something like this, they don't just take it all in. There might be some kind of anchor point or something like that that really stands out to someone, and they'll go right to it. But usually, when you're looking at some kind of visual, there's going to be some kind of path that their eye takes them in. And you can guide them in that way. So for me, when I'm doing things like water, I usually like to leave that water illuminated. And waterfalls, there's a lot of that churning water and it's being, I don't know, what do you call it, oxygenated. So it's usually kind of lighter in tone and, light really reflects off of it, as opposed to kind of what they call kind of local color. And it's where people kind of color things with their notion of what it should be. So sometimes people think that all water is blue and they color like this really dark blue or something like that. I mean, which you can do or something like that, but it tends to block things out and make it look darker and less reflective. Which you can get some blue in there if you want to, and I'll probably do it on this piece, but I like to leave it very light, and that really attracts the visual, the eye, and the scene's really going to be about that falling water in there. Okay, so that being said, let's see here. Okay, so what's going through in my mind is I'm wondering if I should add in some additional rocks. But see, the thing is, I'm going to be putting in some pine trees in here. It won't be this large of a pine tree because I'm going to have these little hikers, and I thought I would put them right here or something like that, somewhere in here. And I'll have to decide where I want to put them. Maybe it might be something like that. But I'll put these pines kind of going up through here. Let's see, let's see if I have my smaller pine tree around here anywhere. All right, I didn't get it out before then, but I'll just use the smaller, the tops of this one like this. Okay. Oh, that's nice when there's no school and you don't have to worry about getting up, everyone getting up early and ready for school. My son doesn't have tomorrow off, but it's half day because it's parent-teacher conference week. And in like middle school and high school, there's no conferences unless the kid is the teacher needs to talk with the parents. Okay, all right, so this is called Pine Island here. This is actually going to be like the right size of trees for in here. So I'm going to, I'm going to add these trees. These trees are going to be perfect for in here. Okay, before I add in any extra rocks in here, I'm going to add in my trees, because if I add the texturing of like these types of rocks in here, okay, and if I add the trees over it like that, the silhouette of these trees is going to be kind of obscured from all that texture in there. So let's get these types of things stamped first and see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. If anyone hasn't seen these videos before, I don't plan things out. I do sometimes, but most of the times, like on a situation like this, I'm just kind of winging it here. Okay, by the way, this is semi-gloss paper, and This is dye-based ink that I'm working with right here. It's starting to smudge a little bit because I really added a lot of reinker fluid to this at some point in time. I was thinking about doing this one in the StazOn black, but I think I want to have the option to use some alcohol inks, and the alcohol inks with the StazOn will kind of blur unless I give it a really long time to dry. And that's not how I want this to go. I don't want to be waiting around. Okay. So see these rocks right down here? I'm blotting that area off again so that it does a nice transition. This is like a pine island, so there's a hard kind of water line down here. But if you're not using it like that, and I'm stamping it out right there, I want it to transition off like this so I can add things underneath it. So you just kind of really give it a good blotting out like this, okay? So really eradicate that bottom portion and then take a little bit more ink off like that. And then you can just stamp it out like this. And see that right there? It's just, you know, everything just blends in like that. So it's just a simple technique, you know, that doesn't take any time at all. Just taking a paper towel and wiping things off before you, you know, utilize it. All right, so let's see. Let's go like this. This one's looking pretty good. This pine island. I usually don't use this pine island like this, but it's taking care of a lot of this really quickly. I'm usually using like an individual pine to stamp all these out, but this is giving me the rocks and pines. I need to remember this. Someone remind me in the future. I'm joking, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not. There's so many stamps and so many compositions. It's like you hope you remember that. Sometimes people will use something and I'll like think, oh yeah, that's a good way to use that. I forgot about that or something. All right, so this is going like this. You have this kind of thing like this. Staggered type of usage like this. I don't even think I need to mask that because I'm wiping off so much of this bottom portion like this. I'm not just taking it off like that. I'm trying to take it off like that. And then what I do is I transition it where it's like really dry in the bottom, but then a little bit wetter and then wettest up top there. So it's going from wet to dry, but it's transitioning, especially in that region right there. Yeah, and see it just blends right into that area right there. Okay, just getting rid of that bottom portion like that. Okay, I'm keeping an eye. I think I've moved my hikers right to down here instead. I was going to put them up kind of farther up along the banks of that stream. Actually, it's raging river. All right. I don't know where they're going to hike. I don't know how they're going to get up there, but, you know, they're going to have to figure out a way. I don't know if they have like rappelling gear and stuff like that. We didn't when hiking in those areas. Okay, so see this area right here? We have our trees right here. So all you do is you take this. Let me see if I take off enough. I'm going to blot it off, and I was wondering if I took off too much ink there. Okay, and then transition it like this. So it's going to be a lighter impression. Like in here. Let's see, let's go right over here. Oh, okay, there. I wasn't quite sure, but you see, you go with a lighter impression like that, so it looks farther back, and then this kind of 40% gray probably doesn't interfere with the silhouette of these trees. in front of it. Okay, so you can get a little bit of depth. You might even be able to go with 3 impressions in like a space like that. I don't know. Let's see. Not really. I got 2. If I was going on glossy cardstock, I probably would have had enough for the 3rd impression. But on this semi-gloss, which is close to a matte type of cardstock, it's really absorbing a lot of the ink off the surface like that. Oh, you got a date with your hobby room. Cool. Do you know what you're going to do today, or are you going to decide when you get there? And when you get up so early like that, what time do you go to bed usually? Okay, I am putting a little bit of a rock up there. And this composition's almost done here. I mean, you know, there was a lot of, there's quite a bit of imagery in here, but it's only, what is it? 1, 2, 3, there's only 4 stamps being used, and this is a half-page scene, right? All right. I'm trying to decide what... I'm going to do this one a little bit lighter. Like this, right at the top area up here. It's supposed to represent something farther away, so maybe it's lighter in value inherently. You can do these things in green and things like that too. I wanted to keep this fairly simple in terms of the structure, and then I would add in, or I'll add in my color afterwards. Okay. Okay, let's go like that, and let's see if I can get that. This is the 3rd impression. Hopefully this stamps out dark enough. We'll see. If it doesn't, you can just stamp another bit of it up there. Okay, so it's a little bit lighter. Okay, so there's our composition like that. Thing right down here. I'm going to put these guys right here. Hiking up there. Like that. All right, let's get to it here. This ink is going to be a little bit wet, okay? And I anticipate getting a little bit smudgy here with the coloring and toning, but I'm going to be using a lot of colors on here, and if I do pick up some of this black in here and it blends, it's merging with whatever media I happen to be using. I just kind of go with that. Now, I don't want things to be just absolutely sopping wet, you know, where if I add like a yellow in here, it looks like, you know, a dark gray or something like that. I don't want that, you know, degree of blending. But if I do blend in things in there and it's starting to pick it up a little bit, I find that to be fine, because I just utilize that mixture of the 2 mediums, or 3, or whatever you happen to be using, to my advantage. It's like, you know, if you're going in with something like, I don't know, pencil, graphite, or charcoals or something like that, you know, you just see it as, you know, you're blending a different color. You're not getting the purity of whatever color you're applying there, but the end result, you know, you're going to have, you know, a lot of different buildup anyway, so it really doesn't matter. You know, you can benefit from it. Let's see, you go to 9 to 10 p.m. on weekdays, and you get up at 4. All right, yeah. Well, I don't even know what shift that is. 4 to something. That's not the graveyard shift. It's like an in-between. They usually, you know, standard working hours like 9 to 5 or something like that. And then it's the swing shift is usually like from, I don't know, 5 to midnight here, and then you know, and then the graveyard shift is what, from midnight to whatever, 8 a.m. or something like that. So unusual hours, Christine. Stamping, coloring, and card making. Always a good time. Okay, so lighting scheme in here. So we're going to be coloring, but we're also going to be lighting in here. This is what I'm always trying to teach people, with scenic stamping at least. Instead of just coloring something, this is for the beginning scenic stamper. All right. Instead of coloring everything uniformly, like seeing a rock like this and saying, okay, that rock is going to be gray or whatever color you want it to be. It's not just coloring the whole thing in completely uniformly, okay, like monotone, okay, or mono value. It's transition in it. So this rock right here gets a little bit darker on the base of it, and it gets lighter. And then the rock behind it goes dark to light up like that, okay? Now, it's not going to be so important with my first tone that I lay in here, but going back to that thing that I was talking about with water, okay, so I'm going to define the things, the objects that are not water in here as being darker. Okay, now I'm picking up some of that black like I was anticipating here. Okay, this is just a paper towel. You can use your blending tools or whatever. I find that paper towels work just fine. They're nice and absorbent, and anything that's absorbent like that, in terms of an applicator of moisture, if it absorbs, then it can probably also transfer onto your piece. And things like paper towels and sponges are really great for that because they're absorbent. They're designed to pick up moisture. So if they can do that, then they can also transfer it really well. But you can see right there, see that water is starting to stand out a little bit. This is the Distress antique linen. So this is like one of those things that we learned in things like, like painting classes and like oil painting, maybe not so much like watercolors, but, you kind of lay down kind of a foundation, a base coat of colors. And we often did warm tones, even if we were doing a cool tone scene or whatever, or painting. It would often be like a sepia or like a burnt umber or something like that type of color, but kind of a warmer tinge like that. And I wouldn't call it neutral because it is warm, but it's light enough of a kind of a base layer that whatever you put on top of it is not going to be negatively influenced by it. If you do choose to go with, like, say, something like an opposite temperature or something of that sort, okay? So, adding this in like so. And I'm not controlling too much of the values from this one color, but when I move into my darker tones, I will take into consideration things like light and shade within here. This is such a really light tone to begin with that I am giving it, I'm giving it a pretty good saturation. Like, that's as dark as that color gets. So, so it's a real easy one to work out, to start off with. This is in the, I don't know, whatever the tradition is of, like, layered media, like oil painting or something like that, okay? You just kind of start off with your lighter tones, base layer coats, and then you work progressively, in this case, darker and thicker. So I'll work from like dye-based inks and alcohol inks, and I'll work into some like acrylic paint pens and pigment ink or something like that. Your thicker mediums, so you can apply thicker layers over thin layers. But if I add in something like, a thick pigment ink down here and I try to go above it, I'm just going to be kind of wiping off some of that pigment ink on there. So light to dark and thin to thick. But now this is on this surface like this. If I'm working on foils, it's different because that's a completely different surface and a different process. Which, by the way, I need to be careful that I don't just totally get hooked exclusively on these types of foils and papers because those things are completely addictive. I don't want to forget my other medium too, you know, or other media out there, media combinations and techniques and whatnot. But this stuff is so insane to stamp on, and fun. I wouldn't call it too fun in the first like 2 or 3 layers or something like that. On that paper, at least, it's in the latter. It's in the the last couple whatever stages in the process that those ones are really fun because they really start to come together. But in those preliminary stages where you're just stamping the imagery, it's like you can't even see the imagery, you know, on there. The paper is just so busy, and it's trying to kind of unify everything together. And I don't know, in my first couple experiments with it, I wasn't even sure if it was going to come together or not, you know, if it was going to be, if that surface was going to be kind of tamed enough to where it was I don't know, like even usable of a surface for scenic stamping. At least with the imagery that I was using. But splatter paint in some stars, you know, throw on a dark vignette around the perimeter, voila, you know. Quite a dynamic surface. Okay, so anyways, can you see that kind of path of light that's working in here? And I've left this a little bit lighter in here. This will be a little bit blue, so we'll have some continuity between this little bluish tinge down here. I made that a little bit too blue down here, that water. And this is going to be blue right in here. I need to do a little bit of a shoreline right here. I'll put in some kind of foreground in here too, so I'm not worried about this kind of area right here where it goes from. This is going to be like land here and water down here, okay, at the edge of the lake. So, all right, but anyways, that is my base layer coat. It's kind of created a nice foundation of a warmer tinge right here, and it's established lighting in here as well. So we've colored in here, but we've also illuminated, and we've illuminated through the use of shade because we're not working with light in here, you're just working with contrast, okay? All right, so let's go with this. Not an exciting, you know, kind of palette right now, but I'll get into some other types of tones in here right now. Right now, I'm just kind of going with some neutrals. Okay, so this is just gray right here, okay, and I'm going to add that. So we'll add a little bit more shading in here. I'm going to use a lot of colored pencils in here too. I really like using colored pencils these days. And this is a little bit darker, okay, of a gray. It's like a 40% gray when used at its kind of full strength like that. So I'll add it in certain areas and I'll retain some other areas. So let's say with this rock right here, if you add it right at the kind of the base of this rock, it's almost like finger painting here when you use like a little thing like this. And then you leave the top of that rock light, then you've colored, but you've also illuminated that object there. So let's put a little bit of tone behind that rock right here. And you don't have to invent. I'm not inventing lighting right here. So that rock right here has that darkness right there behind the top of this one. So I'm just darkening that in a little bit. And that makes that rock look a little bit more three-dimensional. Okay, so you just look at areas that are darker in the imagery itself, and you just kind of enhance that, or you reiterate that lighting on there. Okay, look about like so, and look at that. So it looks so much more rounded a form like that. Okay, so this rock right here has this darker area right in here. And I'm kind of making this a little bit more narrow. And going in here like that. And this is only the second color that we're working right here, and I feel like we're establishing a pretty good lighting scheme already, like that, okay? Here like this, and the lighter. You want your water to stand out, just the darker you make it on the perimeter like that, okay? Or whatever, it doesn't have to be entire perimeter, but the darker you make the objects next to that illumination. All right, and that is your gray right there. Let's see. I'm a little bit overexposed. There we go. All right, so let's see. Let's start moving into some other colors here. Let's make this kind of grassy area a little bit more, I don't know, warmer and greener down here. Okay. This is a peeled paint. Now I don't see these dye-based colors so much as a kind of the end result type of thing, because I plan on using the colored pencils on here. So I see these more as like, again, like base layers for the other colors to come. All right, so, okay, but adding this in right here, it really gives me a nice head start for all those other types of media that I'll apply in here. Oh, let's see. I don't know if I have space for it in here. I can add, I don't know, I can add some little tinges in here, but up in the Sierras, there's a lot of aspen trees. I don't remember if there were a lot of aspen trees around this lake or not, though. But I think, you know, some of that yellow would kind of be interesting in this type of setting right here. All right, let's see. I'm going to give a little bit of a greenish tinge up here. It could represent maybe lichen on the rocks or something like that. There's a little bit of a warm tinge. It's kind of an ugly, kind of greenish tinge right now. Did I say orange? I meant green. But the colored pencils, again, you know, will be going over the top of this, and I'll be using acrylic paint pens and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's see. Let's go on with a little bit of a bluish tinge like this, okay? And again, we'll go with a really light, pale version of it, okay? I think I re-inked this one. That looks really wet. So one of the things I always recommend to people too is when they have a lot of different types of wet media, not alcohol inks or something like that in pen form, but if you have dye-based inks, you can get whatever value of ink you want just by blotting off a lot of that tone or moisture out of that, so that you can go with, you know, a much drier version of it and thus lighter version of it, okay? And see, I'm just kind of adding this little tinge of blue. You can always go darker, you know, if it's too light, you can always go darker. And if you go too dark, you could always kind of remove some of it with, well, not remove it, but you can obscure some of it with white pigment ink, so. But what I always recommend to people is to just add a little bit less on there with each application, because you can always add more, and it just takes less time to build things up kind of gradually if it results in you having to do less kind of repair work on there, you know, to blend something out that you didn't want. You know, just try not to get kind of an undesirable application of something to begin with, and you don't have to worry about it. And when you're applying things like inks on in such a, you know, it's kind of a methodical, very safe way. I mean, I'm applying it now and it's really dry on here, so it's barely any of it is applying, so it's really hard to get anything that you don't want, because it's just kind of applying in such a slow and, again, methodical way here. So yeah, you get a little bit of a tinge of that blue in there, and it's really quite pale. I mean, you can probably barely see it. I mean, I could barely see it right here, and it's right in front of me, but that's what I want right there. Some of it's up in that sky. Oh, I forgot it down here in the water, so let's add some of that down there as well. All right, take it in like this. And remember, if you're coloring, you might color in that whole area down here, but we're also coloring and lighting at the same time. So what you do is you just do less coloring. My paper towel is completely shredding right now. All these crumbs all over. But we have illumination down here because we didn't color in the whole thing. And that's what's happening. Let's hit some of these waterfalls a little bit more here. Okay, so see, I'm kind of applying it in there, but I leave some of that white of the paper next to some of that blue in these areas, okay? And it doesn't matter where you leave it, just leave some, you know, some of that white area within all those different spaces like that. And you have your lighting and you have your coloring all at the same time. Okay, so that is that. You know, this is going really fast with the, this is going really fast with this, you know, this toning like this. I think I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with black right now. I'd kind of think about kind of working up to that, but I'm just going to do all of my toning with my dye-based inks and then just go back in with the colored pencil afterwards. And then I'll use some acrylic paint pens and things like that in there too. But I don't know, that blue didn't take very long at all. So adding in a little bit of a vignette around the perimeter here to enclose or to kind of frame off the composition. I've done cascading waterfall scenes before. This is the first time I've done like anything like this particular composition, so it's always kind of fun to watch new scenes develop, which are a lot of the scenes that I do are new, but this one's like really different from anything that I've done before. Really, relatively speaking. Like, I haven't used this river up here, with these types of things like this and that, kind of that serpentine type of usage of the Pine Island like that. Hello, Beverly. How's your evening going, Beverly? Beverly, I forgot what time zone you're in. I asked some others here. It's a Stampscapes pajama party here for me. I'm not in my pajamas, but might as well be. Okay, so yeah, I think a lot of our lighting, is definitely taken care of right here. So all right, let's go in with some colors. Okay, it's looking kind of drab right now, of course, there's not a lot of tones in here, but, and I don't want it to look, it's not going to look super colorful or anything like that. That's not kind of the spirit I'm going after in this one. But looking at some colored pencils like here, let's pull out some, like a nice range of greens going from light to dark like that. I mean, there's another, I don't know, 3. Here's like a pine green, something like that. And you just kind of line those up like that, going from light to dark. We have this water down here, and we have the water, in the fall areas. So if you get kind of a nice little range of tones, of values within that color scheme like that. And how about some brown tones, like something like this? Here's a bluish gray too. That would look, maybe interesting on those rocks. Maybe I went too dark with the rocks for it to show up very much, but we'll see what it looks like. And something like that. All right, I'm thinking about maybe these rocks can have like a lichen-ish tinge to them. What would that be? Let's grab this, and here's like a sepia. Hey, that was one of my favorite colors in painting classes. I think that was a burnt umber or something like that too. Here's the raw umber. I don't know, that's one of my go-tos. All right, I'm grabbing out like every pencil out of this thing except for the reds and oranges. All right, let's put a limitation on that. I'm joking. You don't have to limit yourself, but I don't want to brab out every single pencil out of my pack right there. But, when I start to approach this with these types of things like this, colored pencils, they're not transparent, but they are kind of translucent. You can see the other colors underneath it. And that being said, I usually start from the lighter tones and work darker again, okay? I mean, I don't know what the official kind of construct is in terms of layering, with colored pencils, but that's the way I do it. I just kind of approach it the way that I do with wet media, because this is kind of like see-through. So if I laid some of this warmer grain down, and I apply, you know, these other types of grains right over the top of it, chances are that this one is still going to read a little bit because you'll be able to see this yellow grain through this, you know, these darker grains right here. Beverly, I think you're the latest. Well, it's early in the morning, but if you haven't gone to sleep yet, you're the latest here. I don't know, unless someone else is on. You know, that's Eastern Standard. Okay, I better add these in here first. I guess I can add those in Stays on Black over the top of wax pencils, but let's add let's add these guys in right now. Because I don't want to have to worry about that. You know, you can't, you know, you stamp dye-based ink imagery over, you know, wax pencils, you know, if it's been applied under, you know, right in here. So I'm going to do something right here too. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a head start. These two are going to be walking in kind of like a mist, because this scene right here, Beverly, I was mentioning to people, it's kind of a memory of going out hiking in this one alpine kind of stream lake situation with my dad. It was his birthday. It would have been his birthday. Well, it would have been his birthday yesterday now, because it's now 12/18 here. So, all right, so there they are. And see how I have them a little bit in that obscured in mist. Now, I do that with everyone. It's not just like a memory or something like that, but I think that looks kind of cool like that, you know, because I plan on using some white pigment ink in there. To kind of add a kind of a dreamier look to this scene. Okay, so let's go with the coloring right here. Let's make this reasonably, I don't know about fast, but it shouldn't take too much time. I need some space here. I've been doing so much experimentation. My desk area is just completely cluttered again. Stamps and media and pads and everything everywhere. Someone posted in the Facebook Stamp Junkies group like a photograph of their work area. I don't know what they wrote. It was, you know, like cluttered. It looked, you know, it was like cluttered, like, I don't know if you, you can't really see. I can't zoom out too far, but I've got piles of stuff like just right outside of the visuals here of this, you know, my camera workspace area right here. And I think that person in that Facebook group said something like help or something like that, or any, you know, recommendations or something like that. And a lot of people were posting like, hey, you know, looks like a, you know, regular working space to me. And that's what I wrote as well. I just said, hey, you know, that shows that you're having fun. Not that you can't have fun with a really tidy work area too, but I don't know, my space gets cluttered. I tend to start cleaning things up though when I can't find things. If I'm looking for a stamp or, you know, some sort of stamp pad or ink or something like that too much, it's like, okay, it's really time to clean up a little bit. Okay, so see this kind of greenish tinge I'm adding over some of these rocks? So it's kind of bringing that area to life a little bit more. I mean, I think it looks okay in that kind of warmish gray tone tinge too, but this is kind of making it a little bit more friendly when you add, when you go for a temperature change with warmth in particular, like that. So, like I said, you know, if you're working on like a matte or a semi-gloss like this, and you can add in these kind of real subtle tints, you know, into your pieces, you know, you can just go with you know, a real general type of coating with your dye-based inks. I mean, you don't even have to do that, but all these dye-based inks in here really gave me a chance to, kind of expedite that whole process right there. You lost your dad on July 22nd. Yeah. Sorry to hear it, Beverly. That wasn't too long ago. It's always around. I mean, if it's close like that, it's on our minds all the time. But it's anytime you lose someone, and it's those like the holidays or birthdays or like Father's Day will roll around. When we start thinking about them a little bit more. All right, so see that warmish tinge like that? And it carries up that, that little bit of continuity between this grassy area and those rocks above it like that. But yeah, condolences, Beverly. Did your dad have any kind of hobbies or anything like that? Anything that he liked to do? Or any kind of sports or anything like that he liked watching? My dad liked fishing. So this is referencing this one area in the Sierras that we used to go to called Tioga Lake. And right at this stream, I'm pointing right here, like right at this stream. But if this was Tioga Lake, there was a stream that came down from the hill on the other side of the lake. And my dad would he would walk around to that area and fish. He liked to fish at that kind of the mouth of that stream right in here. That was always a good place to fish. There was, I don't know, it attracted a lot of fish in that area. Trout. It was always like rainbow trout, but right around in this area there was some of the more non-farmed trout, like we call them German browns. And I don't know if he caught any golden trout over there, but you'd see some golden trout up there too. But we would go hiking up this hillside. Not this way. It didn't look so rocky and hilly like that. It was, more trees and this. You really couldn't even see the stream once it kind of disappeared into the tree line. But this is representative of that area and kind of in these lakes that were up at a higher elevation. We probably hiked up about, I'm guessing that it had to have been at least 1,000 more feet, probably going from 10,000 to about 11,000 feet in there. But there were these small lakes up there, and up in those lakes there were these small golden trout. But little things like that, I like doing some kind of thing. If your dad, you're a crafter, so. I don't know, it's kind of fun. I don't know if it's fun, but I don't know, therapeutic maybe too, just to, I don't know. You do something that kind of brings, brings out some additional memories of your dad. All right, so adding in some browns like this, you really can't see, you don't see this like color brown like that happening throughout here, but there's a tinge of it in there. Oh, you liked what was his favorite team? What's your team, Beverly? Did you two have the same team as far as football? Was it college and pros or both? My dad always watched pro football. He wasn't really into college football. But he lived in Chicago for a while in his 20s. And I think that's when he started watching like some other football. So he was kind of a He wasn't like a Bears fan or something like that, but I think he went to some Bears games. We would watch the local stuff, So I grew up in California, in Central California, so we were like right in between the Bay Area and Los Angeles, but we got all the Los Angeles stations as opposed to Bay Area, so we'd be watching the Rams a lot. So that being said, stuff like that, you don't have like football stamps, if there's like some kind of favorite team or something like that, you can do a card, with the team colors or something like that within your composition. It doesn't have to be like scenic stamping or something like that, but just, stuff like that would be really cool, All right, so that is brown right there. Let's see. Let's bring a little bit more into this kind of sandy area right in here, right around the river or stream mouth like this. This is one of the warmer browns. Now, if I move on to my other browns and I think, oh, I should have used more of this one, you can always just add more of it. It's not like a point of no return, where you add some of this one down and you add another one down. The New York Giants, yeah. So you can do a New York Giants, do a New York Giants scene. Let's see. So you can go with like my recommendation is to go like with a blue foil or something like that. It'd be kind of cool. Have some white in there and some kind of reddish tinge or something like that. You can have like a red and blue Northern Lights going on. Yeah, that'd be really perfect for your dead too. It's like, it's like a red, blue, and white kind of lights in the sky, something like that. You can even have like stripes. It could be like symbolic, these reddish tinges of light going up in the sky, in this blue sky or something like that. All right, so that is that brown. Okay. Now, I mean, I have all these pencils out here, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use them all. When it kind of gets to that resolution that I want, I pretty much just stop. It's like, adding more of, a certain color isn't going to really change it much. So, okay, this one's a little bit more of a reddish brown in here. Okay, but see that little reddish tinge right there? Okay. Not that the rocks up there, are reddish in tinge or something like that, but at some point in time, I'm not really referencing, anything that's really from that location. I'm just kind of looking at the scene and trying to decide on what it needs or what it can use or something like that, because it kind of goes in its own direction. And I'm not trying to kind of, I don't know, kind of create a realistic representation of that particular location. Again, because, we're working with, colored pencils and inks and things like that. And, I'm not trying to create this kind of photorealistic representation of, a real location. I'm just trying to address what I think will make this scene, look its best. The scene, is kind of like, I've got to be me. All right, see that right in there? That little tinge in there of color. That's from this one right here. It's not over everything, so it's not like you're using, every color to, like its maximum, kind of whatever application or anything like that. Oh, good night, Beverly. Thanks for checking it out. right in here around my waterfalls, I want that water to stand out a little bit more, so I'm making some of the rocks around those areas a little bit darker, okay? Because if you make something a little bit darker next to something that's lighter than it, you're making this one step darker, but then by contrast, it makes these areas one step lighter, okay? Not physically, but just, you know, by contrast, it seems lighter. And this is where you can really get, you know, real dimensional with your rocks and things like that too, just by making the base of the rocks a little bit darker. So you really target your application areas of your media. All right, so a little bit more rounded looking in those rocks. You see this shadow right here, you know, between the grass and this sandy area right there. I'm going into the shadow areas within these little grass textures and whatnot. All right. I think that is it as far as that goes. Let's get into some bluish tinges right here. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, you know. It's fun watching it for me too, Christine. I find it really relaxing. I don't find everything to be relaxing during certain processes of making a card, but it's like you can run the gamut of you know, emotions sometimes. Like this one for me wasn't quite as relaxing as this is right here. This is almost like meditation or something like that, you know, where it's just kind of you're just kind of adding it in nice and slowly. So it's like you know, some cards are just like, I don't know, it's like I said, it's like meditation or something like that. And some it's like some cards can be like in some forms like a roller coaster ride. Which is a good thing, right? You know? I mean, sometimes I honestly don't. It's like, I've been doing this a long time, and I usually know, you know, kind of roughly where something might go, but occasionally when I'm working in some compositions or some media, it's like, I don't know if this, you know, how this is going to come out. It usually does, though, because, you know, there's all kinds of things that you can just keep doing on a scene. You can cover things up completely. You know, if you don't like an entire composition, you just, you know, you stamp a tree over the top of it, you know, in some areas that you don't like or something like that. That was always kind of the joke about scenic stamping. If you don't like something, then you just stamp a tree over the top of it, and it looks completely natural, you know, because you'd get that. But yeah, sometimes it's a different type of spirit with some cards, and sometimes it's a different spirit in different sections that you're on. But I really do like adding in stuff like this colored pencil. I wasn't using a lot of colored pencils for a while, but you know, it has its own kind of I don't know, whatever spirit, emotion, whatever going into it. For me, with the colored pencils, it's like, I don't know, it's like taking a process or something like that, and you know, let's say it's 100 steps or something like that, you know, to finish it off. You know, 100 like small steps, but when you add in like things like colored pencils, you can expand it out to like it's now it's like 1,000 steps. You know, but you know, you might be doing a lot of steps. Like you might be covering like 50 steps in a few seconds or something like that. But with this, you know, because you can add in just such a light shade of it like that. I don't know, I don't know, it just happens nice and gradually. It's like something's just coming into focus, ever so, so slightly and controlled. And I really like watching that happen. I really love this aquamarine here. It's like a turquoise-ish. It's like a warmish tinge. It's like to me, it's like this Caribbean blue here a little bit. This one's a little bit lighter maybe. But I like these warm blues. They've come to be some of my favorite hues, to be working in. I just think it makes things really stand out really nicely, even if you use them in like a really light application like that. Doesn't that look really good in there? It's like that turquoise. It's like real crystalline and yeah, it's like a welcoming, I don't know, it's a welcoming shade or whatever. Is it shade or is it tone, a tint? I can't remember, of blue. Okay, I'm going a little bit more, I'm using a little bit more of this blue here in some of these areas than I would if I wasn't going to use some white pigment ink over the top of it, okay? So I'm going a little bit overboard because I anticipate using some white pigment ink in these areas to give it kind of this misty kind of feel. So that being said, I know I'm going to obscure some of this. So I want it to stand out from underneath that layering of white pigment ink to come, in one of the last steps here. So that being said, it's good for us as a process too, I really recommend people kind of get the feel of, working with translucent media and lighter media over the top of the darker media because it really adds in a lot of dimension. And in this case, it'll add in a lot of texture too, in terms of soft texture. But it also looks, I don't know, it looks a little bit more three-dimensional that way as well. Okay, but going back, what I was saying, in terms of a process for us too, if we go overboard, we always have the white pigment ink there to kind of bring it back out into kind of round into form, It's great kind of remedy for any type of kind of technique, I wouldn't say blunders or anything like that, but where I'm going darker like that, I can get away with a lot of I don't know, I guess looser kind of technique and applications if I do that. I don't have to be careful at all because it's not like what we see is what we get after we add this in here. No, because I can just add that thing right over the top of it anyway. So I don't have to do things so carefully or kind of I'm trying to figure out how dark I should go with some of this darker blue right here. Yeah, you can color it, I don't know, a little bit more freely. And a lot of people kind of panic with that too. It's like sometimes when people are doing stuff with the dye-based inks and it doesn't look so kind of smooth or something like that, because they're used to, with whatever types of media they apply, once it's laid down on a white piece of paper, that's it. There's no going back. But that being said, when we add the white or, the opacity to the translucent types of things, the white inks over the top, over the top of this, you're manipulating it at that point in time. So it eradicates any type of, I don't know, kind of those undesirable types of areas within the piece. Okay, but see that there, that blue in there, kind of, there's a little bit more dimension throughout these falls now with just a little bit of this. So see right here, I added a little bit of a darker tinge. There's a little bit of darker tinge in here. Here's a rock right here. If we add a little bit of a tone like that, maybe that this one stands out a little bit more, and into down here like that. So our water is kind of looking a little bit more, I don't know, it's rounding into form a little bit more. And I didn't use too much of it. I'm just kind of using it in the shadow areas. So like right down here, to make this transition from this grassy area into the water, we can add a little bit more tone like that. And then you get that. All right, so it's a little bit more of a stronger transition. And then, I mean, I didn't get it really great, but I'll just smooth it out, with some of that white pigment ink in this light area. I'll put a little bit of mist coming off of the shoreline right there, off the water, contrasting against this green. All right, so anyways, yeah, now that I say that, yeah, that some of that blue is a little bit too dark probably. But again, I'll be using that white pigment ink in here. All right, so here's some of this other blue. I don't know if it's going to get any richer looking. Sometimes the more color you use, the richer the surface you can get. But as you add more color into it, remember to try to retain some of those dark and light oscillations throughout it. Don't, if you add another blue in here, just try to retain some of that lighter blue and maybe add, some of that blue over the top of the blues that you've already applied if you've already kind of taken out a lot of light areas within those spaces. Just keep that in mind. All right, so here's a little bit of a grayish tinge. Grayish blue tinge. I'll add some of that in these rocks. It's a lighter blue, so it's like I don't have to be careful about it like at all, as you can see. All right, and oh, I didn't even add in some of this. What is this? I can't even read it. Light flesh. Now remember, with colored pencils, they're more kind of translucent, if not transparent. So if you add in like some of this over the top of a darker area, maybe if it's super dark, maybe it gets a little bit lighter, but you're not going to lighten up something too much with a lighter tone over the top of darker, okay? But like if I want a little bit of warm, a little bit of a warm glow in there like that in that light area, then I can add some of this in there like that. It doesn't show up too much, but again, it's just, you're kind of working on kind of subtlety. Maybe you could, I don't know, that does look like it's quite a bit warmer in those areas now. Actually, let's add some of this into some of that water there too, just so maybe it's a little bit of a warm tinge of it in there. Okay, let's see that right in here. That has a little bit of warmth from the use of that Distress ink antique linen to begin with, but we'll add a little bit more in there like that. Okay, let's go to black. Okay. And again, you were just reiterating some of those darker areas again. And you're pushing contrasts and lighting a little bit more with this. I do like to finish off with black. If I was just doing this all in dye-based inks, I would be finishing it off with a black dye-based ink. I used a little bit of it in the base layer colors, okay? But it wasn't like black. It was just like a very light version of the black tone, so it was reading more as gray. And that's what I'm doing with this one. I'm never really going with like that. I'm just going with something like that, okay? All right, I think that is it with the colored pencils there. It's one of the more extensive kind of colored pencil applications I think I've done. I don't know. This is a fairly large scene. It's not full page or anything like that, but it's reasonably big. All right, let me see how far I can get in with this. Zooming in. But let's go with our paint pens here, okay? I got a lot of subtle kind of toning on here, so I don't know how much I'm going to be using with this. I'm right now kind of what I'm thinking about is I'm wondering if I have kind of enough space down here to do a little bit of a splatter painting applications. I think right down in here I do. Let's do this right here. It's supposed to look kind of magical anyways, so if I get some kind of overspray, you know, with this, no big deal in here. Okay, so I'm starting off with this splatter painted application of this Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, because this is going to be a lot faster of a process than adding in the dots by the extra fine acrylic 0.7 millimeter paint pen. If you can do something faster, you know, my philosophy, if you can do something faster and get kind of a similar result, then do it that way. And it's, you know, if it's easy too. Okay, so this paint in here is getting kind of thick. I wonder if I should add a little bit of water to it. Let's just give it a try right here. Okay, so splatter painting, just using the tip of it right here, and then really kind of like squeegeeing out, you know, a lot of the excess right there. I don't anticipate using too much of this, so because I just have these areas right in here. I like doing this splatter painting at the base of waterfalls to give it that kind of frothy mist, or that splashing area down here, okay? So where this is going to show up is like where the light meets the dark like that, and that's where I'm going to be kind of targeting this area. Sometimes it's kind of hard to target this because I don't know which way the splatter is going to go. Sometimes I go like this, and I think it's going to go right there, and it's like going down here for some reason. Okay, it's really thick. It's hardly splattering at all. Which isn't a bad thing because it's giving me, I can go like pretty crazy with it. And it's not applying a lot of it. Okay, I know I'm covering up probably what you can see, but I'll try to hold this up so you can see it a little bit. I'm going to hit some of it down here as well. in this watery area that got a little bit too dark, and I'm going to hit it in my grassy area as well. All right, that's the most splatter painting I've ever done in my life. It's like a thin kind of layer coming out of it. Okay, but let's see. I don't if my camera can pick that up at all, but I don't know if you can see it right down here. Hopefully you can. But it's also there's that texturing down here, and it's all in those darker areas. So right up here, I mean, you wouldn't be able to see those splashes like at a distance like that, but just from a textural standpoint, I think it just made it a little bit more interesting, with these transitions right down. I really applied it a lot down here, okay? And then, see this area right in here? It was all that uniform blue coming through there, so I added it right in here, so it's like reflecting a little bit more light in there. Yeah, it is like a slimline card. It's a little bit wider than a slimline card because I think traditionally, but it's almost a half page like this. So this is 5 inches by 10 inches. I don't know what that would, be in centimeters like that, but it's like a 2 to 1 this way. I wanted to do that just to, really reinforce this idea of this, kind of falling water coming down this way. Okay, so let's go in with our paint pen now and add in some additional kind of textural structuring, I guess. Let me see here. You have to really shake these pens up really well every time you use it. The paint is fairly thin, but it's reasonably opaque. The thinness is the thing that these days I think they make the viscosity of these paints reasonably thin in order for them to not clog. So all you have to do is just shake them up pretty good every time you use them. So I'm adding kind of that little texturing where light meets dark, okay? So it's like a little sharp little, little bead of, it's moisture. It represents like a water reflecting in here, but in a way you're adding back light into those areas because it represents light hitting, the splashing water that's in these areas like that. So it's a good way to add in kind of like a little bit of visual interest into an area that might otherwise be kind of boring. Like this whole area right out here, it's not terribly interesting. I'll probably add in some sort of foreground in here. But let's see this rock down in here, okay? If you just add in like a little, like splashing water like this, it's like adding a little bit of dynamic, and it adds movement into these areas like that. So I don't want to fill in everything, like super textural or anything like that. But if you're next to lighting, and especially like water, it's just like an extra excuse to, for something to be in there, like splashes or something like that. Or, if it's a nighttime type of scene, you're adding kind of like stars into there. If you're in an area where there's like fireflies or something like that, you can put like little glowing little spheres of light in there, those areas too. Stuff like that, it's just fun to do. It could be represent just sediment in the air, like at sunset or something like that. You can see everything, kind of all the dust and in the air and whatnot. Okay, so little highlights in here. It can represent kind of highlights on those little tufts of grass, or it could be little white wildflowers in there too. Whatever you know, whatever you want it to represent. I mean, you can go with colored little dots in there too. That'd be cool. I think I'll do that too. Let's see. Let's see down in here. Down in this water area. I'm adding in this texture with this. And there's these little rocks in here, and I'm kind of highlighting some of those. I know you can't see that too much, but that just reminded me. Let's go with some additional texture right here. Let's see. I need to use the stays on because I forgot I used a lot of colored pencil down in this area. Oh, that's interesting, Christine. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, if a lot of people, you know, if a lot of the videos and stuff like that are coming out of the US, huh? I think it was back in the 1970s. I think the US was going to, we were thinking about converting over to the metric system because I remember, you know, in one of those grades that I was in, we were, you know, we were learning, you know, the metric system. I don't know what happened to that, but I was always kind of surprised that I don't know. Do you measure like driving car speeds miles? Let me say, was it miles per gallon or was it miles per hour? I don't know. In the UK, you know, one of my clients was talking about. I think he was talking about speed, and he was talking about miles per hour. I thought, wait, what? You know, I said, don't you go by like kilometers per hour or so? I don't know. It was either distance or speed or something like that. And he was talking about miles. He says, no, we use miles. Uh, I don't know, and that really surprised me. Okay, so anyways, I have some of the rocks down here, so a little bit of extra textures and whatnot. Kilometers per hour. Okay, well, it's the UK then, you know. I think he was talking about miles per hour in terms of speed. That really surprised me. Okay, so I'm going to add in some additional foreground in here. I was looking for my leaves, so I'm just going to use this one right here. So this is all going to represent like I'm looking off of a little, you know, whatever standing area or something like that, and there's going to be some bushes right here in the foreground, okay? I'm adding this in before I get to that mist. I think sometimes when I apply the mist, sometimes when I stamp over mist, the imagery comes out a lot lighter, you know, if I'm stamping over white pigment ink. But then in theory, if I add the mist down first and I stamp over and it stamps out nice and dark, then it would look, you know, more distant. But I think I'm just going to go for it right now. And I'll do it in stays on again. Okay, so Christine, what is your standard size of paper there? Do you use 8.5 by 11 inches, or is it a different size? Like I got these foils recently, And the foils, these foils right here are 11 1/4 inches. I don't know what they are in centimeters again, but it's 11 1/4 by 8 1/4. So it's like a 1/4 inch longer and a 1/4 inch less width-wise. Well, A4, okay, yeah. I thought there was some kind. I think it was Australia or something like that. It's not A4. It's like a different size or something like that. Matter of fact, let me see. I'm looking at this ream of paper from Australia, but I thought it was a little bit different, and I was wondering if it's the case for other countries. Okay, so adding a little bit of this foreground here. I'm not going to add foreground, flanking this, because I'm not going to, put like some tree or something like that next to the vantage point of the viewer here. But okay, so I've added this right here, and that represents something that's a little bit closer to us. So we've pushed the depth in here a little bit more. So, all right, so okay, so here's what I'm going to do too here. I'm going to add in some, maybe what would represent some lupin or something like that. Do you have lupin? I don't know what it would be called there, but that purple kind of wildflower. I was watching a video, I think it was in Iceland or Greenland or something like that, where there's been such degradation in the land there that they added in, they brought in lupin because it adds in all this nutrients into the soil, and it's super hardy of a plant, but it's gone kind of crazy. And so there's kind of this love-hate type of relationship with it. It's not native, but it's like taking over the country, and it's a beautiful plant, but again, it's not native, but it's doing a lot of beneficial things and like restoring the all kinds of nutrients into the soil, but then it's adding it in for itself, because it's it's so prolific there. Okay, but adding some of this right down this space right here, because it's, there's not very much color at all in here right now. So we need a little bit of something. And in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, you'd get a lot of, this type of flower. Okay, let's see. This is a little bit of a dark purple. Yeah, okay, that one's a little bit too dark right here. I might have to go... See, even with like little flower colors like this, I'm going with like a multi-tone like that. Yeah, lupin, Lupine. I don't know if it's lupin or lupine. I've always pronounced it lupin. Okay, so see, multi-tones, like down here again. And okay, now these ones are more opaque. So when I'm working with transparent media or translucent media, I usually work from light to dark. But when I'm working with opaque media, I work from dark to light. So I like to work my darker tones in the back, and I like my lighter tones up front, okay? Yeah, I didn't even use alcohol markers on this scene. That's why I stamped it out in that dye-based ink as opposed to the stays on. I don't know, I completely forgot about it. I don't know. Colored pencils make you forget about alcohol, maybe. Okay, I can't even see this purple, but it'll kind of provide a base, okay? I can barely see it because it's almost the same. It's a different hue than the background, but it's of like a real similar value. It's like the same, in terms of the sliding grayscale or something like that. With I don't know, whatever, white being like 1 and black being 100, 100% or something like that. That's all fairly light down there, and that was light color. So let's see if this pink right here is enough of a change of hue where we'll be able to see it. I might have to go with something much brighter in here, like maybe like this one right here. I'm guessing that, man, I'm thinking I have to go bolder here. We also go with the California poppy. I don't remember seeing poppies up at that elevation, though. Okay, let's see. I really like having access to all of these different colors these days in the paint pens, and having all of these different values and hues. This is the paint pen set right here with a lot of different hues, but also all kinds of different values within each hue. I know that's out of focus right there, but you can kind of see it. Okay, so bringing this area alive with poppies, or not poppies, but the lupin. Actually, I don't know what it is now because it's real pink, and the lupin is, much more purple violet. But this one we can see. All right. It's down here in this area down below. It's subtle. It's not like some big boombastic color or something like that, but I'm going to bring some of that up into this area right here where, I don't want it real obvious. I don't want like, I'm not saying that there's pink rocks or something like this, but when you put a little bit of a spattering of some, hue that's present in other areas like that, okay? On the rocks, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's some pinkish hue lichen or something like that. I just see it as a little bit of these little twinkling little spots of color. Maybe it's from the higher elevation up here, and you get some petals floating down. I don't know. You don't have to kind of justify it or anything like that, but from a visual sense, it just brings a little bit of these little touches of color. I don't think you can see it here, but I don't know, maybe you can see a little bit of it here, but I don't know, it just brings a little bit more continuity to the piece. Okay, so the final things, touches here, white pigment ink, that'll bring it all together. I love doing this type of thing in here. It really improves the spirit of a scene for me from a textural standpoint. I need to open up some new cotton balls here. If you ever do this, 100% cotton balls, okay, not the acrylic ones or the synthetic ones. They just don't work at all. They don't absorb moisture. They don't absorb moisture so that they don't transfer enough moisture. So, like synthetics, they're kind of designed to wick moisture away from the body if it's like a clothing or something like that. So from a crafting standpoint, if you want something to be able to transfer moisture over, you want to go with something that's going to absorb. That goes for things like, like ink blenders or stuff like that. You want to go with something that's going to work fairly well for such a kind of a watery, thin type of medium like inks. Okay. All right. So this is white pigment ink right here. So where do you apply it? I'm going to be applying it in the areas where light areas, okay, meet darker areas, okay. And that's the areas that we're going to be able to see it the most, and it'll be the most effective. Okay, so I usually start it in the lightest of areas like that. If you're working with a really juicy white pigment ink pad, then get some of it on there, really kind of smash it down into the surface of your thing. You see how nice and flat it is? If you go like this, at first it's going to really fray. See, it's kind of fraying like that. But then you just take this and you smash it down. And plus you're kind of pushing some of that back into the surface like that. And when you start applying it down here, make sure that you're not applying anything too fast. Let me do this at an angle like this, okay? Because you'll be able to see it more. I've been working like that. Let me do it like this. Boy, this is real textural on here from that splatter painting. Okay. All right, so I'm going like this, and I'm blotting it for a while. See, I'm tapping it in the lighter area first, like this. Don't rush into it, because if this is like too wet, then you're going to get this big blobby type of application up here. And then when you start moving it into those darker areas, do it with a really light touch at first, okay? And then you'll apply, you'll have a lot of control over it that way, and see that right there. It's just barely kind of applying, and then, you know, that's about all I need. See, that rock looks different than this one right here, right? But see this rock right here, how it's like all black from top to bottom like that? We'll just apply some of this at the bottom, like that. It doesn't have to be at the bottom, you can do that at the top too, but now you have this transitioning tone from light to dark like that. So your rocks, you know, things like rocks and objects seem a lot more three-dimensional because they vary in values like that. See this tree right here? I'll just put a little bit of tone right there, and you have it going from a little bit lighter of a tree to darker right there. All right, so just, you know, you're oscillating things. So here's a lighter area at the base of these waterfalls. And, you know, I'm barely seeing any of it with quite a few tappings, but then I get that little application of tone in there, and it looks like light is hitting that rock right there, okay? All right, I'm getting a little bit out of focus like that. Right here. Sometimes this is a little bit too wide, so you have to kind of squeeze it. Or if it gets like really narrow, then use like a Q-tip, you know, cotton swab instead. You know, again, 100% cotton. See that right there? You get a little bit of that glow kind of happening right now. Okay. I need to be careful that I don't do this everywhere, you know, because you want it to look a little bit different in some areas than others. You know, you don't want it just everything soft in there and, you know, kind of in fog or anything like that. But maybe that's about right there. See these trees in the distance? There's light meets dark, right? Okay. So, and again, I want to oscillate it, so I'm, you know, let's put this over one part of the tree, okay? Like that. So now I think, you know, some of those trees look like they're a little bit more distant and in light, you know, like that. And see, I'm putting some of this over the top of some of these rocks right here. So it's like, I don't know, they're getting kind of a little bit enveloped in that lighting in there. So everything looks a little bit more three-dimensional that way. You're kind of wrapping light around objects like that. It's really just white, you know, you're dabbing white over the top of it, but it looks like it's kind of enveloping it a little bit more. So that little bit of lighting right in there too. Okay, let's see where that some of this can apply down below like this. We have our light right here, okay, and see these rocks right here? I mean, I think it looks fine as is, but let's see if it looks better with a little bit of a textural and lighting change right in here. So go like this. And see, now you have these rocks that are a little bit of a different value. They're a little bit lighter in here than these rocks over here. Okay, let's go a little bit more. Okay, let's put a little bit of this light on top of this water surface to vary that a little bit. See that right in there? Now it's not so monotonous of a one mono value kind of stream. You have a little bit of light kind of reflecting off of that surface like that. I can add quite a bit of it on there too. About like that. I'll put some of this back into this area. Look at that. It looks more dreamy though, doesn't it? It kind of mellows out all of my little colored, you know, paint pen textures, and so it softens up some of them and it looks a little bit more integrated. I can go a little bit more, I can go kind of overboard with my paint pen usage a lot of times, or highlighting, but this just kind of remedies all that if I go too much of anything. All right, I'm going with a lot more of it than what I just a couple minutes ago I said. You know, I might kind of stop because I don't want it over everything, but I really like the way it looks up there. It's kind of a lot more dreamy looking. And as far as like a narrative go, you know, it's supposed to be like a memory or something like that. So maybe it's like a, you know, a little bit more dreamy. Type of atmosphere, representation, whatever. Something like that. Let's take a look at it on its as a whole like this. And let's see, let's make an assessment. Let me see something right here. Give you guys a better indication maybe. Here, I'll throw this underneath this like that. And let me see. All right. Let me get my exposure and everything right on this. So you can kind of see a little bit more of how this looks right here. And I trimmed off like an inch off the top of this, you know, 11-inch thing, just so when I end up matting it and, you know, framing it off like that, I'll have some space because, you know, I can mat it off on a 8.5 by 11 still. You know, I can double mat it a little bit. So that right there, why I put a little bit more right there. So it goes like from kind of softer blue, darker blue, softer blue, darker blue. So you oscillate that area right there. I mean, this is like this little subtle thing, but I think it kind of helps. Oh, Christine, you like that look right there? Yeah, get it. And remember, okay, so anytime I've taught people this in the past, the first time they do it, a lot of times they're white pigment ink pads are very, very wet. Unless you happen to be someone that uses it a lot. You can have like a 10-year-old pad sometimes, and if you haven't used a lot, sometimes it's still like really juicy, okay? And what they do is they kind of go like this, and then they might blot it off a couple times, but then have like a dark piece of paper like this, and then take your cotton ball, and then blot it off like this. Now see how that's going on there like that? That's the consistency you want. Okay, watch this. Say like one tap, you can't see it, okay? So that's like 10 taps right there. And that's what I'm working with most of the time. That's the ideal kind of application. Then if you want to go, see, then it's like, that's like 20 tabs right there. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here's 20, there's 10 or something like that. Okay, so here's like 10, 20, 30 tabs. Now, and this is getting drier on here as I'm doing it, but see, like you can really control the amount that you're applying down. So if it's supposed to represent like fog and mist, that's what you want. You don't want it to go on there. But a lot of times when people start doing this, if they might take off a lot of it and they'll go like this, and they think that nothing's coming off on that. So they might smash it down and then they get that. Okay, but I mean, if you do, you just kind of blend it out a little bit more like that, you know, and it'll blend out. Or, you know, you can go with a different type of touch and application. I'm just kind of tapping right here, but you can go for these really light applications like that, but kind of play around a little bit of on a blank, you know, piece of scrap paper. And that's what you're going after right there. So let's see these 3 trees right here. Let's just manipulate it a little bit. So see, I don't know if you can tell here, I need to get a little bit more ink on there. I've taken off way too much, but see that night now? See that tree right there? I mean, it's just a subtle little thing, but it's not mono value in there anymore. There's like multiple values in here. There's a lighter version of it right at the base of that. So when you do that, you make your forms look a little bit more three-dimensional. And I mean, you could do things where you stamp them out. You know, you can take your stamp and you can remove some of that ink, or you can color it in grays and blacks or something like that, and get it inherently in the design itself. But you can just do it. I find it easier just to stamp it in black. Or, you know, you can do, if you wanted those trees to be green, you can do that too, or whatever, you know, but you can always just kind of alter things with this type of touch after the fact. And I mean, it really makes it easy. You know, you don't even have to think about those types of things when you're first, you know, doing your composition. Okay. Now, if I was spending more time, I would probably, you know, have some of these trees in green tinges as well as things like that. But I just wanted to do the composition really fast for this one. And there we have it right there. Let's see. This is the, I don't know if I should title it the Dana Lakes, because it doesn't look like that at all. But that's what it represents for me. So I'll just say, you know, I don't know, call it something. I need to shake this up again, but anyway, so there's the scene. I think it's, you know, I think it's reasonably integrated. Like I said, I haven't used like those big kind of heavier waterfalls with this kind of meadowy area down before, you know, this river stamp. But yeah, I don't know. I think it did the trick. I think one of the things that's helping here is that white pigment ink up here. Do you see that, all that white pigment ink? I mean, that, you know, that area up there was just as black as, you know, these images down here, but I just used the pigment ink down there. So I really knocked that area back there too. It's almost like a, what is that? It's like a 20% gray or something like that. So it's not so top heavy anymore. It looks like it's transitioning more kind of into the distance, I think. And it's a little bit lighter and not so kind of monotonous. Okay. Anyways, an invisible signature. This thing, I got a little bit of a ink up into that tip of that, but let's see right here. So anyways, I don't know if anyone's watching besides yourself, Christine, but thanks for joining in. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for stamping here with me. If anyone else is checking it out, thanks to all of you for watching too. I don't know, I'll have to come up with a title for this piece right here. You know, Hike in the Sierras or something like that. Maybe that should be the title of this one right here. But yeah, for me, this piece right here was a lot of the colored pencil work. I don't know. I'm still learning how to use colored pencils. I wasn't really using them very much until about, I don't know. I don't think it's even been a year. I mean, I've used them a little bit periodically, but not as extensively as this. But yeah, using them here made me completely forget about the alcohol inks. Not that I just forgot about it, but I was getting all those nice soft tones with those colored pencils, which, of course, the colored pencils are really great for. So, yeah, that's what I learned with this piece. And again, it works really good on the semi-glossy cardstock. It's paper that you should be able to get wherever you are. Around the world, it goes by silk, dull, semi-gloss, or satin, finishes. Sometimes those are easier to find than like a glossy cardstock. You used to be able to get glossy cardstock anywhere, There used to be stores, of course, and all these, like retail stamp stores, and they would always carry glossy cardstock. But I don't know, it seems like it's getting increasingly harder to find. So stuff like this, and I also tried out the matte photo paper, and I think we can do this on that matte type of photo paper as well. And sometimes the matte photo papers are really easy to find too, as opposed to certain types of other things. Matte cardstock, maybe too. Sometimes the matte cardstocks, though, absorb a lot more of the dye-based inks faster, as well as the photo papers. So maybe use a lot more colored pencils as opposed to the dye-based ink base layers. And, you can get a lot of richness with the colored pencils. So, yeah. All right. Have a great weekend. Have a great crafting, stamping, card making weekend there, Christine. And hope you have a great rest of day, I don't know what time you sleep till, with those hours you keep. But, yeah, have a great rest of morning. All right. Thanks for joining in. And hopefully we'll see you on a future live stream. It'd probably have to be one of those late night ones, maybe. For me here, early for you. All right, good night.